Welcome back, coin hunters and collectors. Today, we're taking a closer look at the fascinating Liberty State $quarter coin, a coin that may look ordinary at first glance, but could have interesting history, unusual varieties, and collector appeal hiding in plain sight. So before you spend that quarter, take a moment to examine it carefully, because the smallest details can sometimes make a big difference. The State Quarter series became one of the most popular U.S. coin programs ever created, giving collectors a chance to explore American history one quarter at a time. Each design represents a state, landmark, or important symbol, making these coins more than just pocket change. They are small pieces of American history. In this video, we'll look closely at the coin's date, mint mark, design details, condition, possible errors, and varieties that collectors may find interesting. We'll also discuss what can make certain examples more desirable and why condition can play such an important role in determining collector interest. So grab your change jar, check your pockets, and get your magnifying glass ready. You never know what might be hiding among ordinary quarters. Stay with us until the end, because we'll reveal the key details you should always check before deciding whether a state quarter is worth keeping. And remember, not every old or unusual-looking quarter is automatically valuable. Rarity, condition, minting characteristics, and genuine collector demand all matter. That's what makes coin hunting so exciting. Sometimes the discovery itself is just as rewarding as the value. The Liberty State Quarter from Nevada, dated 2006 and honoring Nevada's admission to the Union in 1864, is the kind of coin that can look ordinary until you slow down and examine every detail. The date 1864 is especially important because it represents the year Nevada became the 36th state, while 2006 is the year the Nevada State Quarter entered circulation as part of the United States Mint's 50 State Quarters program. On the reverse, the design captures a distinctly Nevada story. 3 wild horses running across an open landscape, mountains rising in the distance, and the sun appearing behind them, while the inscriptions Nevada, 1864, and EPLURIBUSUNUM connect the design to the state's history and identity. The imagery is more than decoration. Those horses symbolize Nevada's wild spirit and wide-open spaces, making this quarter especially interesting to collectors who enjoy coins that combine history, symbolism, and everyday accessibility. But here is where the story becomes much more intriguing. Although millions of Nevada quarters were produced, individual examples can become much more interesting when their condition, mint mark, strike quality, or genuine mint error separates them from the ordinary coins that pass through our hands every day. One of the most fascinating things about the 2006 Nevada quarter is that rarity does not automatically come from the date alone. Millions of examples were struck, so a normal circulated Nevada quarter is generally not a hidden fortune simply because it carries the 2006 date or references Nevada's 1864 statehood. What collectors really want to investigate is what makes one example different from another. Look closely at the horses, the mountain details, the lettering, the date, and the edge of the coin. A strong strike can preserve tiny details that disappear quickly on heavily circulated pieces, while an unusually clean coin with sharp surfaces and attractive luster can become much more desirable to condition-focused collectors. The mint mark can also help identify where the coin was produced, and collectors may compare Philadelphia and Denver examples when studying their collections. The real excitement begins when an apparently ordinary quarter shows something genuinely unusual. A doubled letter or number, an abnormal rim, an off-center strike, a dramatic die problem, or another verifiable minting anomaly. These discoveries should never be assumed to be valuable merely because something looks strange, because damage after the coin left the mint can create scratches, flattening, discoloration, or distortions that resemble errors. Imagine finding this quarter in an old jar, a forgotten collection, a cash drawer, or even a pile of coins that had been sitting untouched for years. You pick it up casually, notice the Nevada horses, and then something catches your eye. Perhaps the surfaces are remarkably clean, the strike appears unusually sharp, or a section of the design seems different from what you remember seeing on other quarters. Suddenly, the coin is no longer just 25 cents in your mind. It becomes a question. Could the difference be a genuine mint error? Could the condition be exceptional? Could the coin have been preserved almost perfectly since the day it was struck? This is where responsible collecting becomes important. Do not clean the coin, polish it, scrape it, or attempt to repair anything yourself, because cleaning can destroy original surfaces and potentially reduce collector interest. Instead, place it carefully under good lighting and compare it with a known normal Nevada quarter. A magnifying glass can help you inspect details, but the goal is not to convince yourself that every unusual mark is an error. The goal is to determine whether the difference can be explained by the manufacturing process. The physical examination can become almost like detective work. Start with the weight, because a meaningful weight difference can sometimes provide a clue that deserves further investigation, although a home scale is not enough to prove an error. Then study the metal color and surfaces, remembering that environmental exposure, chemical reactions, and damage can change how a coin looks. Examine the strike alignment from both sides and check whether the design appears properly centered within the rim. Pay close attention to the rim itself, because an unusual broad rim, missing portion, or dramatic distortion may deserve professional attention, while ordinary dents and impacts usually tell a very different story. Next, inspect the lettering and numbers for possible doubling, but remember that true doubled dies have specific characteristics and are not the same thing as blurry machine doubling or damage. Look at Nevada, the date 1864, the 2006 date area, the mint mark, and other prominent design elements from several angles. A coin that seems extraordinary under one light source may look completely normal under another, which is why careful observation matters more than excitement. And now we reach the part that can make collectors dream about the ultimate discovery: value. The amounts discussed here are illustrative storytelling examples, not guaranteed prices, and an ordinary Nevada quarter should never automatically be valued anywhere near these figures. A minor but interesting variation in a hypothetical collector-grade example might inspire a discussion around $2,500 to $3,500 if specialists determined that it was genuinely scarce and desirable. A more notable authenticated example could enter a hypothetical $9,000 conversation, while a particularly high-grade coin might be discussed around $5,000 depending on its rarity, certification, and market demand. An unusual mint anomaly could potentially be discussed around $6,000, while a rare collector piece might reach an illustrative $7,500 level. An exceptionally preserved or uncommon example could be imagined around $8,000, and an unusual discovery attracting strong collector demand could create an illustrative $8,500 scenario. At the extreme end, an extraordinary or historically significant example might inspire a hypothetical figure approaching $9,000. Again, these numbers are storytelling possibilities rather than promises, and real prices depend on authentication, grade, rarity, eye appeal, auction results, provenance, and what buyers are actually willing to pay. That is why professional authentication can be one of the most important steps before anyone starts imagining a down payment on a home, a sudden windfall, or a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. A genuine mint error is a manufacturing event, not simply a coin that looks old, scratched, dirty, discolored, or unusual. Professional graders and experienced numismatists can examine the surfaces, strike, dies, composition, dimensions, and other characteristics to determine whether an unusual feature is legitimate. Certification can also provide an independently assessed grade, which becomes particularly important when condition is a major part of the coin's potential desirability. Even if your Nevada quarter turns out to be worth only face value, the examination itself can teach you how coins are made and how collectors distinguish ordinary circulation damage from genuine minting varieties. And sometimes that knowledge is more valuable than the coin, because once you learn what to look for, you begin seeing possibilities everywhere. In pocket change, inherited collections, forgotten coin rolls, and old containers that nobody has opened in years. So the next time a 2006 Nevada quarter lands in your hand, do not rush past it simply because millions were made. Remember the powerful connection between 2006 and Nevada's 1864 statehood. Study those running horses, examine the mountains and lettering, inspect the rim and alignment, and look carefully for legitimate signs of something unusual. Most examples will be ordinary, and that is exactly what makes the hunt so exciting. You never know which coin will be completely normal and which one might deserve a closer look. Somewhere, an overlooked quarter may be sitting quietly among hundreds of other coins, waiting for someone patient enough to recognize that its story is different. But if you think this Nevada quarter is interesting, keep watching, because the next coin may have an even more surprising combination of rarity, history, and minting mystery, and you may already have one hiding somewhere in your own collection. The Arizona State Quarter carries a fascinating connection between American history and modern pocket change, beginning with Arizona's admission to the Union on February 14, 1912, and culminating in the release of the Arizona Quarter under the 50 State Quarters program. One important detail for collectors is that the Arizona State Quarter was not minted in 2003. It was released in 2008, with Philadelphia examples carrying the P mint mark. So if you have seen a coin described as a 2003 P Arizona quarter, that date should immediately make you pause and verify what coin you actually have. The reverse design presents a dramatic desert scene featuring the Grand Canyon, a saguaro cactus, and the year 1912, creating a miniature portrait of Arizona's landscape and statehood history. The obverse carries the familiar portrait of George Washington, while the reverse transforms an ordinary quarter into something that feels connected to the American Southwest. At first glance, it may look like nothing more than a common coin, but that is exactly where the intrigue begins, because collectors know that condition, minting characteristics, and genuine errors can completely change the story behind an otherwise familiar piece of pocket change. Look closely at the Arizona quarter, and the visual details become much more interesting. The saguaro cactus rises vertically through the center of the reverse, while the Grand Canyon is represented by sweeping layered lines that give the design a sense of depth. The inscriptions Arizona and 1912 help identify the state's historical milestone, while EPLURIBUSUNUM and United States of America frame the design as part of the larger national coinage story. The 2008 P Arizona quarter was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, and the small P near the design is one of the first things a collector should examine. Remember, however, that simply finding a 2008 P example does not make it rare or extremely valuable. Millions of Arizona quarters were produced, meaning ordinary circulated examples generally remain affordable. The excitement comes from finding something genuinely unusual, a dramatic die error, an off-center strike, a significant doubled feature, an unusual planchet problem, or an exceptionally preserved specimen that stands far above the average coin found in circulation. This is where the search becomes almost detective work, because genuine mint errors can sometimes be surprisingly subtle. Start with the rim and edge, looking for a shape that appears unusually narrow, broad, uneven, or distorted compared with a normal Arizona quarter. Then examine the strike alignment. The design should be properly centered within the coin's boundaries, and a substantial shift may indicate an authentic striking error rather than ordinary damage. Next, study the lettering and numbers under strong magnification. True doubling can produce separated or clearly duplicated design elements, but scratches, machine damage, and postment wear can create misleading shapes that look exciting at first glance. Pay particular attention to the P mint mark, the date, the lettering on the reverse, and prominent design elements around the canyon and cactus. The goal is not simply to find something that looks strange. The goal is to determine whether the unusual feature was created during the minting process. That distinction is what separates an interesting damaged quarter from a collectible mint error. There is another examination that can help you understand what you are holding: weight and metal appearance. A normal clad quarter has a specific composition and expected weight, so using an accurate digital scale can reveal whether a coin is significantly outside the normal range. But a weight difference by itself does not automatically prove rarity, because dirt, wear, environmental damage, or inaccurate scales can produce misleading results. Examine the edge as well, because a normal clad quarter typically reveals its layered construction along the rim, while an unusual color or edge appearance may deserve further investigation. Be especially careful with coins that look unusually golden, dark, silver-colored, or coppery, because chemical exposure and environmental staining can alter the appearance after the coin leaves the mint. A genuine mint-made composition or planchet anomaly is much more interesting than a coin that simply changed color over decades of circulation. For that reason, responsible collectors document the coin, compare it with known normal examples, record its weight, photograph both sides and the edge, and avoid cleaning or polishing it, because cleaning can permanently reduce collector appeal. Now comes the question that makes every coin hunt exciting. What could an unusual Arizona quarter potentially be worth? The answer depends heavily on authentication, rarity, condition, error type, and collector demand, so any dramatic numbers should be treated as illustrative possibilities rather than promises. A storytelling ladder. A minor but legitimate variation might inspire interest around the $2,500 to $3,500 range in an exceptionally favorable scenario, while a much more notable authenticated example could enter discussions around $9,000. A high-grade coin might be imagined around $5,000, an unusual mint anomaly around $6,000, and a rare collector piece around $7,500. An exceptionally preserved or uncommon example could reach an illustrative $8,000 level, while an unusual discovery attracting intense collector demand might be discussed around $8,500. In the most extraordinary hypothetical scenario, an authenticated Arizona quarter with an exceptionally rare and historically significant combination of characteristics could be imagined approaching $9,000. These figures are storytelling examples, never guaranteed prices, and real-world values can be dramatically lower or higher depending on actual auction results and professional grading. Imagine finding a quarter in an old jar, a forgotten drawer, a family collection, or even the change left after an ordinary purchase, only to discover that something about it is genuinely extraordinary. Suddenly, a coin that might have been ignored for years could feel like a sudden windfall, perhaps even resembling the kind of money someone might put toward a down payment on a home. But this is exactly where patience matters, because the dream of a fortune can cause collectors to mistake damage for rarity. Before making any valuation claim, compare the coin with an ordinary Arizona quarter, inspect the date and mint mark, measure the weight accurately, study the rim, examine the edge, and look for consistent evidence of a mint-created error. If you believe you have discovered something exceptional, professional authentication and grading are essential. A reputable third-party grading service can determine whether the feature is genuine, evaluate the condition, and provide documentation that gives serious collectors confidence. Never clean the coin, scrape suspicious areas, or attempt to repair an apparent error yourself, because an amateur alteration can destroy the very evidence that makes the coin interesting. And that is what makes the Arizona State Quarter such a compelling treasure hunt. The real mystery is not whether every quarter is secretly worth thousands, because most are not, but whether the ordinary-looking coin sitting unnoticed in front of you might contain a characteristic that almost everyone else would overlook. The year 1912 connects the design to Arizona's statehood, while the 2008 P issue connects that history to the modern era of American circulating commemorative coinage. And somewhere between those two dates is a story about how history can survive in the smallest objects we carry every day. So before you spend that next Arizona quarter, turn it over, study the cactus, follow the canyon, inspect the lettering, check the rim, weigh the coin, and question anything that genuinely looks different. Because sometimes the most exciting discoveries do not begin inside a museum or an auction house. They begin in ordinary places where nobody thought to look twice. And just when you think you have seen everything an everyday quarter can hide, the next coin may reveal an error so unusual that it changes the entire hunt, turning another piece of pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery.